Really love this new movie from Lionsgate called One Ranger. It's like a mix of certain genres. It's really really cool. And the guy that plays the big bad in this movie is this guy right here, Dean Jagger. Dean, how you go? How you doing?
I'm doing great, James, mate. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Well, it's actually Dean Jagger. I should correct myself there. Now, I feel like this movie, Dean, it doesn't quite fit into a specific genre. It's not a full-on Western. It's not a full-on like action thriller. How do you describe this thing?
It's interesting, isn't it? For me, when I watched the movie, when I read the script, it holds a lot of nostalgia for me, right? It's a good action film that's very pacey, that keeps moving, and it's just a perfect game of cat and mouse. That's what it is. That's what it is. And it has its complexities through it with the characters as well. It's an interesting one. I understand why you're saying that, James, actually, because in terms of the character as well, even though he looks like he's having a ball of at the time, right? Building this infamy as it goes along, I think through the course of the film, it becomes quite self-reflective as well, and like what he's actually doing. So it has heart, I think, as well. For a good old action film, I think this has heart too.
It really, really does. As a matter of fact, your character is a pretty tough customer, but it runs, like you said, it runs a little deeper than that. How do you describe this guy?
Oh my word. Okay, so I don't know. He's like, he once fought for a cause, right? But he's kind of like fallen from grace, and he's out there on his own. And he's resourceful, he's very intelligent, he's ruthless, and he kind of like knows that he's coming to his end. That's what it is. It's really interesting. He kind of knows he's coming to the end of his rope, and the doors are closing on him, and it makes it very interesting for someone like Declan. Like what happens when a character experiences that? It becomes very unpredictable, becomes very dangerous, and he plays it like he's got nothing to lose. Yeah.
He really, really does. Matter of fact, I love the fact that the synopsis for the movie that they give us describes him as a bank robber turned terrorist. That's quite a leap there, Dean. So how much can you tell us about what actually is motivating this guy?
Well, I think what it is like, if you think about what he was, it was like, we learned that he's ex-IRA, right? And I think that he's lost things to fight for. He's even lost his way in the cause of things. So I think what he's doing now is chasing chaos, James, right? That's what he's doing. Is chasing chaos, yeah.
And that makes him even that much more dangerous for sure. I got to ask though, Dean, because this is one of the most interesting things about this for me. How in the hell does an Irishman end up in Texas?
Well, I mean, it's, like I said, he's a very resourceful guy, isn't he? You know what I mean? And like you said, I think he's a guy that gets about and whatnot. He likes to stick and move because he's high profile, isn't he? He can't be in one place, for too long. That's just the nature of the game for someone like McBride. So that's why he's hopping about doing this and doing that, and like I said, building this fun and infamy as it does along the way. Yeah,
it just takes a lot of planning, Dean. I'm just saying that's a pin in the map where you go, let's go there.
It takes a lot of planning, mate. He's got about 2 or 3 assistants or something like that, I'm sure.
He's got interns and we just don't know.
Yeah.
Now we get to see a little bit in the trailer of Declan squaring off with the Ranger himself, played by Thomas Jane. What was it kind of like working with Thomas and bringing those scenes to life? Because I mean, this guy's played the Punisher and all kinds of crazy characters. That had to be great.
I'll tell you a story about Thomas, right? Okay, so I was introduced to Thomas like many years ago through a mutual friend, producer friend. So I've been a huge fan of Thomas, right, for the longest time. And this producer, he knew that, and one day he was going to Thomas's house, so he asked Thomas if I could join. And then Thomas, being as cool as he is, he says, "Yeah, shit. Why not bring him up to the house?" And he bought us Mexican food, and it was wild. And that can only happen in LA. I was like, this is very, very strange. I'm in Thomas Jane's place. No, he's a great guy. He's very professional, and he was brilliant. I've got to say, he's a gamer. You know what I mean? He really brought it and whatnot. It's really interesting to see seasoned actors work. It always is. But he's fantastic. He had all the time in the world for me as well. He's brilliant.
That's incredible, man. I expect nothing less from him for sure. They both kind of come though, Declan and the Ranger. They kind of come from very different backgrounds, very different ways of life. Do you feel like they kind of both underestimate each other in this thing, or is it just kind of maybe they just don't know quite what to think of the other?
That's a great question, James. I feel that it's interesting because it slightly changes in the film. Their dichotomy kind of changes. So without giving any spoilers away, when obviously it's chasing Declan down and whatnot. I think that the fact that it's so persistent and is not going away, Declan respects that. And if you think about it, along the way, Declan's got no one to turn to, right? Really, through the film, the doors start closing on him, you see. So in a really odd way, Ranger becomes the consistency in his life. So towards the end, he gets a little bit closer. He feels somewhat closer to this person that's chasing him. And I love that about the script. I got that off the page. Yeah.
That's interesting. It almost seems like a Batman Joker type dynamic, the way you're describing it in an interesting way.
Well, that's what it is, isn't it? Because it kind of bottlenoses, should I say, into something quite personal, even fanatical, in terms of like Tyree. He's going to stop at nothing to get this guy. So I found that quite fun, and I found it really interesting.
That is very, very neat. I feel like you've got two different parts of the story here. You got the chase with the Ranger, but then you've also got Agent Smith, who's kind of dealing with this, I have to save my country sort of thing. So how much of a problem is she going to be for Declan?
I think that Declan is always one step ahead anyways, is a strategist and whatnot. And I think that he knows not to like stick around a place too long. I feel like that he's, like I said, he's a strategist. He's very intelligent and he's cunning. So I don't think he's too worried about Smith, and he knows she's coming, but I don't think it bothers Declan. In a way, in an odd way, I could look at this differently as well. I could say, you know what? Towards the end, does Declan want to get caught? Right? Does he want to get caught? Maybe. It's a good question, isn't it?
It's funny though, because we actually see in the trailer, so this isn't really a spoiler. He does get caught at one point. Right. And you hear him say to the Ranger something along the lines of, "Oh, I'd like to face up against you." So does this just kind of show you how resourceful this guy is? Because clearly he's been caught, and that didn't stick.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something as well, James. It's not the first time he's been caught as well, and I'm not too sure whether this made the movie or not. But there's a whole backstory exposition how Oleg and McBride actually came to meet. And I guess I think I can speak about this. All right, can I speak about this? Can I speak about this? Basically, they actually met. Oleg and McBride, the backstory is they actually met in a high security prison, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think this is in the film, so I don't think it's a spoiler, but yeah, they actually met in prison, and basically McBride offered Oleg a way out if he could protect him, basically. So they both broke out of a maximum security prison together. So Oleg kept McBride safe, and then McBride boosted him out. So he's very resourceful. You can't keep him down.
It's interesting because that kind of leads me to my next question, because I was going to say, nobody could do this alone, and how talk about some of his allies and the loyalty towards him there. Does he kind of struggle with that? You feel like Declan, does he struggle with I want to be this chaos loose cannon, but at the same time, I do have this guy that's kind of been riding with me this whole time?
I feel like the Oleg and McBride have a good time. Oleg likes money and Declan pays well. They have an understanding. Obviously, there's a great amount of respect there. But yeah, I mean, if it were up to them, they'd be doing it forever, right? But obviously, Declan, through the course of the film, you can see that. Well, there's one point in the movie which there's a certain scene that I love when he meets someone from the past, and he challenges Declan, and it becomes somewhat self-reflective. And so, yeah, it's kind of like through the course of the film, it kind of toes the line a little bit. It does, because he's constantly reminded that he's coming to the end of his rope, right? All the doors are closing on him. So it's interesting. Yeah.
No doubt about that. You all got to film in some very different settings, Dean. Did you have a favorite place or favorite location that you guys got to shoot at?
Well, it was nice being back in England. I went to go see my mum. That was lovely. But yeah, it was great shooting in England. But I think LA were really cool. The aesthetics of shooting in the desert, it looks fantastic. I mean, you can shoot out there on anything and it's going to look brilliant. However, I did get sunstroke. True story.
No way.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah. Well, see, I'm not used to it, right? I'm just, British, half Irish lad, pasty as hell, right? And looked
A little
after
bit
me.
more toast, a little bit more toasty than Yorkshire.
Yeah, I had my sunblock on and all that, James. But like, yeah, when you're shooting out in the desert for a couple of days, we're running about and stuff like that, I just wasn't climatized. So, but I did enjoy it. I'd say that like shooting in the desert was pretty neat. It's pretty cool. Yeah,
Oh, we're glad you recovered from that for sure, because that's no fun, my friend. That's no fun. Really quickly, Dean, before I let you go, this is going to be maybe a little bit of a tough question, but who's your favorite person to share scenes with?
To share scenes with? Ooh. Well, I've got to say, I mean, I didn't obviously I didn't get to work with John, but like I've got to say, I'm a huge fan of Thomas Jane, and he was so gracious with me, and he had all the time in the world for me. I've got to say that it's 50-50. It's Thomas and it's Jess, because they're the two people I work with more than anyone really. But I've got to say this as well. I've got to give a big shout out, well, to everyone involved really. Do you know what I mean? To everyone involved, everyone worked so hard. Do you know what I mean? It were a challenging shoot. It was a good shoot, but a really good challenge.
I got to say, I'm a little sad you didn't get to have any scenes with John, because I feel like that dynamic would have been really fun.
Yeah, I know. It's fantastic, isn't it? It's just brilliant, isn't it? He's brilliant in anything that he does. So yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we who knows what the future holds? You got to see it for yourself when One Ranger hits theaters and on demand on May the 5th from Lionsgate. Can't wait just for you guys to see what this guy's got going on. Dean Jagger, thank you so much, Dean Jagger, for joining me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.